This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today, I am flying solo. In fact, I'm looking in the conference room over there, and I see the beard, but he doesn't do Monday podcasts, and I wanted to get this one knocked out. We are starting off the Protege Season 2 finalist series, and it's appropriate that the first guy that we have on and release is Mr. Ryan Smith, who was the first one to get immunity. What's up, man?
Hey, David, thanks for having me. A little disappointed not going to get to meet Kyle.
Well, I can have him pop in and wave real quick, but he's coming off of a birthday weekend in Miami that was combined with his wife's trip that she won through ADP. Uh-oh, he's coming. There he is.
Look at him. He's on his feet. What's up, Kyle?
He can't hear you because I'm wearing my headphones, but that's it. He said it's oiled up and ready for action. That's what he told us earlier in sales meeting. Whatever that means. That may be residual. That may have been intentional. I'm not sure. But anyhow, so we got all kinds of stuff we can talk about, man. But why don't you give everybody kind of the overview of who you are and where you came from first, if they haven't watched your bio video and all the other stuff that you've done so far.
Yep, did a full recap in the bio video. Went all out on that. But so I'm from Lawton, Oklahoma. That's where I was born and raised. I survived 19 years there and went to college at University of Central Oklahoma on a music scholarship. I was playing cello and quickly realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was in high school, and also found the more exciting social aspects of college. So
you running for office, man? You're really dancing around. I will just tell people straight up, I went to college and I went from a place where I was the best at what I did to being in a place where everybody was the best at what they did, playing ball, right? So that was a huge wake up for me. And I realized pretty quickly that there were no rules in college either. And I people think I'm joking. It took me 8 years to get through school because I really, really enjoyed the college experience. Every ounce of it. So
sure.
I don't know. Did you grow up in a pretty strict home?
No, I wouldn't say it was too strict. I mean, it was an insurance home. My dad was in the insurance business, but really it was soccer practice multiple nights a week, and I was pretty competitive in that, and so didn't really have much of a social life in high school. So
Same.
Once I got that freedom, it was.
Yeah, for mine it was probably the fact that I grew up Southern Baptist for starters, and then second, that I was always running to a different practice or whatever else. I mean, I didn't even date anybody until I got into college. That's how busy I was. I didn't care. Wasn't even remotely interested in it. Probably had some of my parents or some of my family a little bit concerned about how I might turn out, but I had it all dialed in. When you're that age, man, if you're competitive, which I am, and you're reasonably good, which I was, you're focusing all your efforts on whatever it's going to take to get to the next level. I looked at it as if I double down on baseball and I actually make it to the pros, I'm going to have the pick of the litter for any girl I want to date. So let me just focus on this right now, because anything outside of that's a distraction.
It's interesting how it all came together. I was introduced to music and orchestra in 5th grade, and really I was led into that by my grandparents. My grandfather, who ran the agency before my dad and uncle, but they kind of helped me get started in music. They were huge in the arts community in Lawton, and it's interesting how it all developed. I was real passionate about soccer, but in my sophomore year of high school, I found out that I could kick a football as well. So I was a kicker on the football team. I had a couple really good years, but didn't want to go to a junior college, so instead went the orchestra route. But that actually in turn led me back to insurance, because UCO had they still do have an insurance and risk management program. So I figured the family business might be a career path that I could take and run with and see what I can make happen with it. So out of UCO, got a internship and then a full-time job at AAA Insurance in the underwriting department. That's where I first got licensed and got my feet wet with personal home and auto quotes, hundreds a day, just ripping out quotes for agents in Montana and Wyoming, and doing a bunch of, home evaluation reports for people. So got pretty tired of that. It was just data entry. When a risk management position opened up in an oil and gas company in Oklahoma City, and boy, was that a wild ride. I was insurance analyst for about 3.5 years, and that was the end of 2014 when I started that. So immediately went through a layoff, and then during that 3 years, 3 more layoffs, bankruptcy. It was nuts. So in that time, my son was born, needed something a little bit more stable, and the family business was there. My dad and I had talks about me working remotely and trying to grow the book of business in Oklahoma City, which is where I'm at still today, which is a much more growing market for business, for all sorts of industry. So been in the family business, the agency, for 4 years now, doing mainly commercial lines.
How old are you at this point? Because I feel like you're really young to have all that
32.
experience. Yeah, that's a lot of experience to have at 32, man.
It's interesting. I've got the company side experience. I've got experience with commercial lines, from the consumer side, and really that was more eye-opening than probably what I can even put into words now, working with, Aon and Lawton and some of these global firms, seeing how they operate. I really haven't had a chance to put that into use with all the, minimum premium, small mom and pop shop accounts that we have in the agency. So the Protege, that was my ticket in, I think.
So how much has the analyst job helped you prepare for what you're doing now?
Well, as you can imagine, I am pretty analytical. I will get into the details and stay there. So we've had this conversation before.
No, listen, I'll be honest with you, man. Ashley, right? Ashley Napier? Yeah.
Yep.
She's coming on the podcast in a few weeks. We couldn't remember when it was. I was really distraught when she couldn't recall the date, because I felt like that should have been a monumental day in her life that we were going to actually have her on an interview. We were joking back and forth.
Got a lot going on.
Yeah, we were joking back and forth at BrainShare. But she asked me, she said, what do you think about Ryan? I was like, if Ryan can be about 50% less analytical in what he does, he will absolutely crush it. And it goes back to something I talk about all the time. Number one, look, I think everybody starts out on one side of the fence or the other. You're either a salesperson or you're a technician. You're never both right out of the box. And so people who are salespeople only go into the production role, and people who are analytical go into like risk management, underwriting, insurance compliance, something along those lines. But I feel like the people who are the most successful at what we do are the hybrid of the two. Like you, and that's the thing, man. I feel like I've got pretty good chops in the sales game, but I'm deadly when it comes to the technical aspect of it. Like, I think people tend to overlook that because I don't really ever get into technical insurance speak, but I take my continuing education seriously. I know it. I just also am calibrated enough when I'm at the sales table, at the closing table, somebody's conference room. I don't need to show them every single trick that I know, right? I think for some of us, and this would be advice that I would give to you, Protege or otherwise, and I've given it 1,000 times, but I think that people come to meet with us with the understanding we're already qualified. We don't need to prove anything. And I honestly also think they come not really caring about the insurance. As long as they know they're covered and they can make the supposition that they're covered, then that's fine. You have to show them just enough to get the deal done, but not like everything that you have. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, it does. And it is right in line with what you say all the time. You've already proven that you're worthy of being in the meeting with him. I mean, they wouldn't have accepted the invite otherwise, but you have to believe in yourself. And so I think part of what I've struggled with in my submissions in the Protege is talking too much and trying to prove to myself that I know what I'm talking about while I'm submitting it, to you. And so a 5-minute video turns into a 15-minute video. Or
well, I think that's true, man. I mean, that's something you're going to end up having to deal with your entire career until you get it. I wouldn't say it's broken, but until you get it dialed in. You don't have anything to prove to me. You know what I'm saying? I believe that you're 100% capable of being there. That's why I put you in there to begin with. But it's funny that you have that much self-realization about it, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know who you're trying to convince. It sounds like you're trying to convince yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, going back to your question about the analyst position, that's certainly not a sales position, and doing the data entry
sounds terrible, honestly.
It was a lot of policy reading. I read a lot of policies back then, making sure that all the endorsements were there, making sure everything was email. It was printing a lot of emails that we received so they could go in the folder, because our file room was immaculate. The risk manager, she wanted the paper files. Her office was like towers of paperwork, but she was brilliant, and she had everything organized in her mind. The office is a different story, but so I didn't have any sales experience coming into this role, and I've always just kind of leaned on my social skills, I suppose, being able to have a conversation and walk into a place, with some confidence. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning on.
You've already won the battle,
no
man.
Formal training.
Yeah, at that point, you've already won the battle. That's what most people lack. Then there's the people who have all the self-confidence and no technical knowledge whatsoever, and they're going to cling to happy hour or a round of golf to get the deal done or whatever. But
yeah. Well, to kind of wrap it all up, this conversation about my analytical versus sales. Ultimately, my goal is to be the 4th generation agency owner of Smith & Sons. And I mean, I'm a part owner already, but I want to take this generation of the business to new places, to new heights, things it's never seen before, things my great-grandfather could not have imagined. I mean, we're on the internet, so he certainly didn't imagine that, but there's so much potential, and in today's world, there's no reason why you have to sit in the old office where the town is not really growing. There's a lot of people moving out. There's no business developing there. So take the business to a market that is growing, and that makes sense. And so, I'm looking to be statewide, have 3 offices that cover the state, and maybe going beyond that eventually. But in order for me to get to that point, I have to prove myself that I can bring in the revenue so we can get there. So again, that's how it came to me wanting to be in this competition, is to really learn how to bring in that revenue and justify some of the expenses that I know we need some of this technology that's going to be able to put us statewide instead of just in the small corner of the state that we've been in for 99 years.
So how many offices? You guys just one office now, or do you have 3 right now?
Nope, just one. Same one since the 80s. Same carpet since the 80s. But it's just the one. There's been 4 employees for a couple decades, and I'm ready for that to change. I'm ready for that to grow.
So how's the older generation feel about that?
My dad is excited. He definitely wanted me to be a part of this, and everyone has been making sacrifices so that I can work on these projects, but that's kind of the struggle I'm in now, is balancing that, because at the beginning of the year, even leading into this year, I was, we all had a meeting and said, I'm focusing far more on sales this year than I have the past 3 years. And there's a good reason for it. But, then it just so happened that we bought another agency. And so we brought on we basically doubled our book with one carrier, and so all of that's been dumped on the other employees in the office, and the phone does not stop ringing, and people are walking in paying cash, and it's draining. So I'm trying to balance that with the Protege competition, especially leading into the production phase.
Well, the good news is the hard part's over, man. Now all you got to do is just go out and write business because you built the mousetrap. So this is the rest of your life at this point. That's what I tell everybody. And I mean, the thing that I looked for as I was going through this whole process, what really would show me who's making a difference or who's really taking it seriously is the people like you. Sean Kirby's another one where I could see that, okay, this guy's not just building this for now. This guy's building this because this is where he plans on going. And to that end, we laugh and we joke about you being analytical, but at the end of the day, you have to be if this is the rest of your career, and you've got your agency kind of hinging on it. Not whether or not you're ultimately going to be successful, but certainly your plans for what you want to do for the foreseeable future hinge on that, and you can't take shortcuts to do it. So good on the rest of the people in the agency that they've picked up the slack a little bit so that you could do some of those things. I do feel like it'll pay you, an exponent of what what the investment is.
Right. Yeah. Back in the day, my grandfather, he was writing what then I would assume to be middle market sized accounts. I mean, this is back in the 60s and maybe the 50s is when he first started. But, since then, my uncle and dad really focused on keeping business. And they did bring in some new business as well. But a lot of it has, over time, become small accounts. And so that's what I've found myself working on. And, it was kind of a light bulb moment on one of your podcast episodes that says whether it's a $500 premium or a $5,000 premium, up to a certain point, it's the same thing. It's the same problems, but you get past that and you're starting to talk with business owners that are really more concerned about, not the price point, but what are you getting alongside that, or what's the value that you can actually bring to the table. And so that really lit, the sign in my head that said, this is the path you need to follow.
I can tell you that there's a marked difference even inside the middle market. So to me, there's a lot of people that just don't, for whatever reason, to me, it's easy for me to say it now, but I'm immune to what the numbers on a policy are. I have zero reaction one way or the other. Now, if it's $1 million in premium, I'm still going to have a reaction to that. But I mean, if you're looking at something that's, 25,000, 50,000, I can remember the first time I wrote an account over 100,000. I got excited about it. Now it's like me, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way. It's just that after you're involved in it for so long, it's like anything else, man. You have to, it's like honestly being addicted to drugs. You have to have more and more and more to get the same reaction. And so, from my perspective, it'll be interesting to see as you start moving upstream from where you're at or the typical type of an account that the agency has right now. As you start moving up and you get to that 100 to 250,000 and north of that, what that looks like for you, because there is a marked difference. If 25,000, you're still having a very similar conversation to the $5,000 bot. 50, there's a little bit more meat on the bone. You can start having a little bit of a business discussion, but the amount of the level that you're able to impact that is minimal. And then when you get to you get to 100,000, now you're talking. If there's a $100,000 workers' comp policy and there's a 10-point swing on the mod, a lot of people are going to pay attention to you over $10,000. Whereas if that's the same thing, it's like, what do you mean there's only like a $500 difference? It's more of a headache for me to change everything than it is for me to try and fix it. So, and then the further up you go, it becomes more and more of a business conversation. I mean, I think that's one of the things that probably clicked with Derek Hayden last year, was that he started calling on these bigger accounts and realized it's actually much easier. It really is. If you don't want to have to, because to me, it's even today, if you called me and you wanted to buy like a $500 Hartford BOP, I'm going to have a harder time closing that than I would a $500,000 account. I really am, because I'm nobody to that person, right? I'm not a trusted advisor. I'm the guy that answered the phone looking for, to help quote insurance. Whereas if I go into a place intentionally or I'm referred into a place, that comes with a certain expectation of what my skill set is. And when I go in and we just start talking about general operations and business and everything else, it's over. Like it's over at that point because I understand how you tie the two together.
It's really exciting to see some of these companies coming out, and you've done webinars and things on it, quote bind issue products, and ways that you can point those people that are calling and still generate that revenue without having to put in all the hours to fill out the applications. They can do it themselves, and so that's been a part of the transition since I've come in. I mentioned my dad, who's been there 40 plus years, while the other two employees are 10 years and 20 years there. So technology has changed so much in that time, and introducing those things can be difficult, and that's why having mentors through the independent agent channel has been so valuable for me, talking with people like Bo Pilgrim, Jason Cass, of course, Mike Crowley, and having that experience that you can lean on and figure out some of those things using the advice of older people who've been there. I think that's really huge. And so for me, I don't shy away from asking for help. That's going to be a huge part of the change that is needed in my agency. So
yeah, I don't think you should ever stop that. Those are certainly three good guys. I mean, Bo, Mike, and Cass are all three friends of mine, and certainly people that I respect in the industry. So I don't think that changes for any of us. I'm sorry, my oldest son is overnighting a bunch of books to Arlington, Texas, where I'm supposed to speak, and he's apparently having problems with basic execution of shipping. Here we go.
We're ready to get you here to Oklahoma.
It's coming, man. Hopefully 3130's out and abound by then, man. I'm trying to get it wrapped up. Freaking Protégé's been a nightmare this time, not because I shouldn't say like it's a nightmare logistically. That's it. Like I enjoy doing it. I have a good time with it and all of that, but I've ended up having more travel than I expected, and then with Rocky being the producer and having wildfires that he gets called out of state to fight, that's not really helped any. It's been crazy, but it's left me with not a lot of time for anything else, and I've got like probably 2 to 3 chapters left. I've just got to bang out. I already know what they are. Like my whole architecture is written on my remarkable tablet with all of my subpoints. I just have to sit down. I may actually get to the point where I dictate it on the plane and then let Otter transcribe it for me when I land, so I can have something to start with and get it over and done with. Once I'm done writing it, it's 3 weeks. That's it. It'll be out in 3 weeks. So I have to get that done. But so I understand the why. Talk to me a little bit about the experience that you've had, like with your coaches, because you're with Justin and Ciara, correct?
Yeah.
And that was
they're
that was
amazing.
kind of an interesting little scenario too, because we had 2 people that were at the same agency on the same team, right? That left.
Right.
Weren't Crystal and Sarah both on that team, and then all of a sudden they
Yep.
weren't? Okay. Yeah, so you guys
Yep,
actually,
and-
that worked out in your favor, man, because you probably got more FaceTime with the coaches than anything else, so you should send them a thank
Sure.
you note.
Yeah, I didn't actually meet either of them. I mean, not face to face. We were on one call together, and it was just kind of the initial, our very first team call as before the first challenge. So I was actually in the middle of moving, and so I was kind of all over the place myself. But from there, it took off quick. It was like within a couple of days, Challenge 1 was out, and our whole team was working on Challenge 1, and we were kind of bouncing ideas off each other in the message, in the group message we had. But since then, really, it's been Kevin and myself getting to meet pretty much as often as we wanted with Justin and Ciara. And so that's been a huge help for the two of us. And something that Ciara pointed out pretty early on was, she's been through all the modules in Killing Commercial, and Justin's in Killing Commercial, and no other team
Probably
can say
hasn't
that.
ever even logged in.
And so,
Sloan's probably never
Oh,
logged
okay.
in.
Well.
He's too busy doing Sloan things, man. He can't concern himself with what the minions are doing. I'm just kidding. But no, you know, you couldn't have gotten two coaches that are more different from you, number one. So I think that helps you with your perspective. I can say unequivocally, Kevin, your teammate, is not like you guys come from completely different universes in terms of how you think. And I'm not saying that one's right and one's wrong. It's just Kevin comes from a completely different place than I think, and I tend to find that I'm on the more creative end of things most of the time. And he has really blown my mind. He's done a really, really good job. But before we get into the team stuff, let's back up for just a second. Where did you think you were going to end up? Like, as they were going in to do the draft, where did you figure you were going to go? And it's okay to say you thought you were going to go number one if you thought that.
No, I didn't. I had really no expectations. I was just
figured
hoping
you
to get
were. I figured it
top
would
12.
be. Yeah, I figured it was going to be you because Mitch hadn't come in yet. I feel like Mitch has more visibility than everybody else, so maybe he would have been number one if we wouldn't have saved him as kind of like a wild card, because I didn't even know Mitch was coming in until after the draft was over. Like, I needed to go out and find a couple of people. He was one of the ones, and that's when, or actually it wasn't until the draft was over. It was like right before the draft. That's when I had talked to Heath and Ariel and all of them. But I knew you would be. I knew you would be at the top. I am in no way talking smack or throwing shade at Jonathan Lugo. I did not see him going number one. I thought that was an interesting pick. He comes from a good agency, him and Andy both, but I was really, really surprised. So, for the reasons you mentioned, the fact that Ciara's been through all the modules and everything, you already have a leg up on everybody else, because I don't think anybody else, Hayden probably hasn't been through all of them. I know Keating hasn't. Mick hasn't. Yeah, so you had that's almost like an unfair advantage, kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely paid off in more than one challenge. But yeah, the draft was interesting. It was pretty exciting for me. You know, leading up to it, I had watched every other contestant's videos. You know, I'm a little bit analytical in that way.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that some of them were, 90 seconds or something, and mine turned out to be 20 minutes, or I don't know how long it was, but. I left it all on the table. I went for the wow factor, and I think something I heard on the draft episode, Ryan Keating and Mick Hunt, they talked about, if it takes you that long to get your point across in a bio video, then maybe that's why they chose to go for Lugo. But Lugo's a great guy.
Was entertaining too, though. That's the whole thing, man. Like, yours went long, but I kept waiting to see which wrestler was going to show up next. Somehow the Protege took on like some sort of a wrestling theme after IPFS made the championship belt that they showed up to boot camp right before Innovation 2021. And then from there on, it's like, all right, I'll take it and run with it, whatever. I literally have and since then, I've had like 3 or 4 other people give me like championship belts.
Really?
I need to like make a wall of belts in my office or something. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, when I was putting that video together, Derek made a video and he had his belt, and that just reminded me of all the times you've talked about wrestling on the podcast, and I thought that's how I'm going to stand out in this, and so that was my theme, I guess I could say. But no, I made an effort to reach out to as many of the coaches as I could. I was only able to get a hold of 3, and it ended up that they were each on different teams. So I spoke with Derek Hayden, Ryan Keating, and Ciara before the draft happened. And so I felt pretty good about being drafted by somebody, but I didn't really have any expectations.
You weren't the only one that employed that strategy either, by the way. There was probably 3 or 4 of you that did that. I mean, Karen Seifert, I think, called everybody with a license in 13 states close to Florida, like, before she came on. It was hilarious because every time I turn around, somebody else is sending me a message. Hey, who's this Karen Seifert? So,
nice.
Yeah, and then I had a couple people sent stuff in the mail ahead of time. It was interesting to see. It was actually kind of cool to watch how people were working to position themselves, because nobody did anything like that the first season at all.
Oh.
So that was a good move. I think it caught some of the coaches, and actually Karen called coaches from last season, in addition to coaches from this season, because she was wanting to find out what advice they would give her or whatever else. So, It's
I guess I had a leg up there because, Jason Cass spoke at our Young Agents Conference here in Oklahoma last year. And he came in the night before we went to dinner. And after dinner, I, pulled him aside and said, I got to be on Protege season 2. What should I do in my video? And so he just started asking me these questions. And I kind of told him my story and how I'm passionate about the risk management side of the industry as opposed to just the insurance. And he said, run with that. And so that's kind of what I did. And the fact that we completed 75 hard, together, we were kind of on that journey together. And I think that's kind of why from the beginning he's chosen me to be his horse, as he says.
Yeah, man, he's vocal about it. No pressure.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what have you learned as you've gone through the process so far?
Well, I'm still analyzing, I guess you could say, how to best go about my messaging. And so more so than just the cold call scripts or the elevator pitch or even my emails that I'm sending out, it's how do I really be more intentional and more focused on the words that I'm using and being smarter and more strategic about what I'm saying. And so that's kind of led me to a standstill at some points. It's like, well, I don't even know where to start. I've written 3 paragraphs for one email. It's like I need to cut this back, but where do I start? So something that in the feedback you gave me was get the Hemingway editor and just plug it in there.
Same.
It'll tell you when your sentences are too long and what it's confusing. And so that's helped some for sure. Like I mentioned before, having Ciara as a coach with her branding mastermind, that's been a big help to me. And I'm not sure you recall, I hear you have a great memory, but we actually spoke 2019, I think it was before the pandemic. And, I told you what agency I was with. And you said, well, you're going to have to consider rebranding because that Smith & Sons insurance agency is not going to fly in a middle market, meeting. So look at that. And so from that time, I've been thinking about what to do. And so Ciara helped a lot in that.
I'm pretty consistent in giving that advice too, especially if it's an agency or demographic. And I understand the legacy of the name, and that's why I always tell people, don't abandon your name. Leave your agency however you want to leave it, but at least brand your process when you're going to do that, right?
Sure.
And the example that I always give, and if we had talked about it after he had done this, then I probably gave you the same example. But I was having lunch down here with my friend Greg Hogan, who has an agency up in New York, and I told Greg the same thing. He's in Killing Commercial, and I told him, I'm like, his agency's name is the Caraba Agency. So every time I hear it, I'm thinking, wow, I cannot wait to get Johnny, the Johnny or whatever, because I love Carrabba's. Carrabba's is like one of my favorite places to eat. But the name of his agency is the Caraba Agency, and I told him, I'm like, look, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I mean, no offense by it whatsoever, but I just don't know how the Caraba Agency plays in the middle market when Aon, Willis, USI, whoever, Brown & Brown, whoever is there to compete against you. It's like, who are the 3 agencies we're talking to this year? That's how I always think about it. And it just doesn't sound like it belongs. And he's like, look, already ahead of you. I already filed for the trademark and everything, and I'm going to be Catalyst Risk Solutions in the middle market. I'm like, okay. So he's Catalyst Risk Solutions powered by the Caraba Agency. And that way you can leave the name of the agency attached, but people are shopping with you as somebody who sounds like you belong at the table. It doesn't take anything away from your intellect. I think that there's a lot of really smart people in smaller agencies, and their brand and marketing is what keeps them from getting bigger opportunities. When really, if they had the chance to present, they would probably win accounts if people would give them the opportunity. You just have to figure out how to get your foot in the door. So that to that end, absolutely being on Ciara's team is a huge help because she's really good at that. It was funny when I sat down and kind of looked at who my coaches were going to be. Ciara was a no-brainer. I wanted a female coach. I actually wanted more than one female coach. She's the only one who agreed to do it. Justin, Sloan, the three winners from last time. So pairing those two together were good. Sloan's got good technical. He's good with systems too. His pipe drive build out is legendary amongst certain circles. But Ciara brings the branding, the creativity, different perspective. And then I put Sedlak and Hayden together for the same reason. Hayden is good technically, but he's also relatively creative, pretty good marketing guy in his own right. And then, truthfully, I put Mick Hunt and Ryan together because I wanted Mick Hunt to rub off on Ryan and make Ryan better, and knowing that, again, Ryan was one of those people last year where he was kind of up and down, and depending on which version of him you got a really, really good version. Actually, he's very similar to you from an analytical standpoint. We just very rarely see that side of him in social circles. And then, Mick is the process guy, so he could take everything that Ryan's trying to articulate and create and push that out to people in a way that they'll understand and be able to systematize it. So, if I were to look back and say, and then obviously draft was done before we ever announced the mayor and Ariel. So if I were to look back and say, of the three teams, do I think you ended up on the right one? I think you did. I think you ended up in the right place, honestly. I think you would have done good with the others, but I think that just sort of the way the chips have fallen, I think you did well for yourself for the competition, and I think you did well for yourself beyond the competition as a result.
I'd agree. I don't, I didn't know what I was in for getting picked by Ciara and Justin, but at this point, looking back, I'm glad I wasn't on any other team because they've been really good for me and for keeping me focused and not getting too wordy on some things like the marketing slick. You should have seen it originally. But
well, I look at that stuff too, man, because I'm kind of the same to some degree. Like, there's a reason I knew about the Hemingway editor. Okay, there's a reason why I give the feedback that I give. It's not because I was just born with this innate ability to go out and create awesome marketing slicks. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's because I've gotten my rear end kicked enough times that I understand the tweaks that I need to make, and I'm just constantly fine-tuning to make myself and my work product better and better and better. And that's that's an everyday thing. I think it is for all of us, man. So you'll get there. You're not going to get there in just a few weeks of being on the Protege, but you will over time if you don't abandon that mission. What was the most frustrating challenge for you?
Oh, good question. I think the challenge 3 was the conference or the trade show that we did, and I had never given any thought to that before. And so
that's really the only kind of curveball I threw you guys when it comes to challenges. I think everything else was kind of similar, if not the same, to a certain degree to last season. That wasn't in there.
Right. Yeah, it was a shock, and it took me a little while to come up with something. We did score a call with Josh Gurley, and that was real helpful.
That was one of the first things I was looking for, was to see how many people knew to reach out to him. Seriously.
Oh, yeah. As soon as that was announced, I texted Ciara and said, "Is there a way we can get with Josh Gurley on this? Because I'm completely in the dark."
And I warned him ahead of time. I'm like, "Get ready for your phone to light up, man, because if these people are as smart as I think they are, they're going to be looking to pick your brain."
Yeah. So that was the one, and I don't know that I did great on that. My submission was a half hour long. And so I don't blame you if you still haven't watched it, but Kevin did a great job on that one. I think he actually participated in a trade show.
He actually did it in real time and took pictures from when he was there. And that guy, man, win or lose the Protege, that guy, he's going to ultimately be very, very successful just because of the infrastructure that he's built. I don't know if you guys know this about him or not, but and I'm telling you this because you need to know before you go into the production phase if he ends up being in the top 6. But he's got multiple Facebook groups with thousands of contractors in them that he created. he's got like the California Contractors Group, the California Plumbers Group, or whatever. But he's got these captive Facebook groups that he's created that he's just should be able to go in and mine, you know. And I don't know that you're necessarily going to get middle market accounts out of him, but if his goal is to write enough business to put food on the table and get to the top 3, I don't know how I'm going to pick the top 6 at this point, or the remaining 4, you know. And I've always tried to be very, I don't want to say political, but very soft in how I communicate with people, because it's a toss-up at this point. I could take almost anybody that's left standing and put them in those 4 spots, and it's still going to be good competition. It's still going to be
right.
Good. And so I don't know. I mean, I sort of pussed out a little bit, you know, and didn't eliminate people week after week. But I also felt like the work product that they were putting in was good. And I also didn't want to just stop working and helping people, giving them the feedback to say, hey, do this, do that, and have them lose access to their coaches. So that was the other thing I did that was sort of a surprise, is not take a different person or a different couple of people off every week. But I cannot go into the production phase with more than 6 people. It just can't happen. Like, I can't manage that. And, you know, because part of that, whether you realize it or not, is you get an hour. You get a lifeline. So if you have an actual account that you're out trying to get into, or you got into and you don't know how to position or whatever else, you actually get time scheduled with me to help you walk through that and tell you exactly what I would do, or you and your coaches in conjunction with your coaches. So, you know, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You're in, right? So it doesn't matter who the other ones are. You only have one you need to be responsible for.
I'm glad Abby is as well, and
she earned it,
something
man.
you. Oh yeah, and like I say, if you had cut some of the contestants episode by episode, we probably wouldn't see some of these that have been in the last few episodes that are just.
She would be
killing
one of them.
Been, yeah.
I mean, I fear she would be. Kevin may be too, because Kevin, maybe not. Kevin, if I would have gotten rid of Kevin, it would have been pretty early. Once the trade show thing hit, he's been on my radar ever since. But I feel like with Abby's biggest issue is just like everybody else, man. It's Abby. She's the one. It's her head that she's stuck in, and now that she's gotten out of that, I've watched her blossom. And you know, it's funny. I was at Brainshare and had 2 other agency principals come up to me and ask me if I could put them in touch with her, because they wanted to recruit her to go work for them. And I'm like, I am not even getting in the middle of that. Not a chance. You know, number one, Celia Cross would have me strung up in no time. But you know, I think that's pretty cool that people are paying attention, and that if nothing else shows her that she belongs at the table.
Yeah, she's great. She's real just fun person to talk with, and I got to meet her, you know, doing our show after the show, the Protege recap that Sean Kirby, John Lugo, and Mitch Gibson and I do each week after the episode comes out. And we invited her on one time, and she was just a blast. That's been a really fun part of all of this as well. It's just kind of talking with my competition, you know, week after week, and you know,
well, you're expanding your network outside of Lawton, Oklahoma, man. I mean, I know you're involved in the Big I in the States. You've got relationships there, but it's when you start really getting relationships in different parts of the country that the game changes, because the amount of referrals that you can hand back and forth and everything else. I mean, it's crazy how many referrals I get just from other agents every single week, just for whatever reason. You know, they see me speak at IAOA or whatever else, and many times it's stuff I can't help them with, but I know the right person, and I'll flip it over to them, and you know, everybody ends up being happy. And I remember who refers stuff in, and we refer stuff out, because I don't write outside of, you know, incidental exposure. I don't write anywhere other than Florida. So, you know, if I've got a lead, it's going to go to somebody that has tried to help me or has helped me, or that I know is going to do a good job. But building that national network's huge. And as you grow, especially if you're going to grow to multiple offices, that's going to do nothing but make you stronger. So I don't want to go too much longer, but I do want to know who do you think poses the biggest threat to you from a production standpoint?
Well, truthfully, Abby is right there. I can see that, you know, she's already got she's already got things going for her, and she's got a very specific niche, and there's a lot of people that won't go anywhere near that, including myself. And so she's done a lot of great work to make that successful. I don't want to give too much credit to Sean Kirby, but I could see the guy doing well in production. Same with Mitch. But, if I'm being honest, once Jonathan Lugo graduates college this semester, which I believe happens this month, and he's given his full time to production, he's going to be a monster.
Yeah, I think he will too. I think the one thing that saves you with Lugo is the policies that he's going after in his niche aren't necessarily middle market. So he's going to have a ridiculous amount of volume in order to make that work. And that's assuming he makes it into the top 6, man. We don't know if Lugo's going to be there or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I sit here right now, I don't know. Part of the reason why is because of some of these slackers that I won't call by name, but you know who you are, still haven't turned in their challenge yet. Right? So I need to get that done so that I can get everything in process and have this thing wrapped up, because originally I wanted the production to run from like May to August, but at this point, probably not even going to start until June. Have it run June to September, or maybe I can get it announced in a couple of weeks, but I'm not at a point in the production of the show where I can do that yet. So
yeah. Well, I got to think it lessens your chance of making it to the next round if you don't putting in your submissions on time.
I agree.
It's kind of a big thing in this industry,
especially when it's habitual. No names called. They know who they are. But what's the most fun thing that you've had happen? And we'll end on this since you've been in the show.
It's just been the interaction with the coaches, and like I say, with the guys that I talk to every week about this stuff. And, I've got friends that are following along and they're cheering me on and always asking me, how's the Protege going? And so that's been a huge blessing. And really the whole experience has been a lot of fun, and it's been motivating for sure. I try and not let it take up too much of my work week, and then also not bleed over too much into my personal life, but I look at this year as the pivot moment in my career. And, I've just got you to thank for that, and certainly Jason Cass and my coaches as well. And just the mentorship and the interaction that I'm getting with some of these brilliant minds is definitely an honor and a privilege. So thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you put up, man. Thank me when you put some money in your bank account. Anything outside of that's theory at this point. So,
yeah.
I think that's always going to happen. And for me, the rewarding part is just knowing that people listen to what I've been able to do, that I've been able to make work, and they take that and they don't have to use it exactly how I've have it packaged, but they can make it their own and go out and be successful doing similar things. I mean, Jason Webb wasn't in the top 3, and that joker's written, I can't even tell you how much business he's written, but he has written a ton of business doing things that we developed with him in Protege, right? And to this day, he'll have a question, reach out to me, whatever else. And so for me, that's the part that's pretty cool, because when I came into the industry, I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a legacy agency. I didn't have a mentor that I knew about that I did. It was the guy that owned the agency, but how much attention did you really think I was going to get, And so that's one of the things that I've always tried to do, is give people the vehicle that they need to get the information that they need. So that's it, man. Any parting words of wisdom before we wrap up?
No, that's kind of you to do that, and it definitely shows young people like myself that this industry is full of people who care. And certainly there are the C players out there, the average business owners, but I was speaking at UCO as an alumni to their insurance risk management group.
You and Wes.
And I told them that. Yeah, with Wes and Krista, and I told all these college students, if you're looking for an industry that there's a lot of people that'll just sit back and let business roll in and, take it easy, and you're a person that can go in and really blow people's minds and blow those average players out of the water, then insurance is for you. And obviously they're already interested, but I think that's a big part that we all have to play an active role in, is spreading the word. Insurance agents are not just old guys sitting around with fishing poles holding the dollar over you and saying, "Oh, gotcha." There's really a lot of excitement and a lot of fun that can be had in this industry.
My 19-year-old is learning that in real time as we speak. He went to BrainShare with me last week. He was with me out at the Better Agency Conference in Phoenix a couple weeks prior to that. He's headed to Insurance Soup Live with me this week in Arlington, Texas, and that's the one thing he said is, "Wow, I can't believe how cool these people are, man. They're just really good people, easy to talk to and everything else." And I said, "You didn't buy anything from any of them, did you?" I said, "There's some that are going to get you, they'll convince you to buy something if you're not careful." But, I think that's what makes any industry good, is the people. It's only going to be as good as the people who are in it. And I find few industries out there that have the level of talent and professionalism and just truly good people who have their moral compass dialed in, their priorities right. And I think part of it is because that's why the insurance industry is so attractive to us. You don't have to worry about missing ball practice or a dance recital or a church activity or whatever else. You can plan your life around that. And so that would be my message to any of those kids. If you want to have some freedom over your schedule but still make good money, come talk to me. We'll be happy to talk. All right, man. Cool. Well, listen, we're going to wrap this one up. I am getting emails left and right over here. I keep glancing over at my other screen. I'm getting nervous as to what I am going to have to answer when I get off. So I'm going to wrap this up. I really enjoyed having you on the Protégé this season. I look very much forward to seeing how things translate into real world. In my mind, if I pick the right top 6, all 6 of them are going to be fighting tooth and nail to win the overall thing. And more important than that, just hopefully it changes the way that you're able to do business going forward, and it monetarily rewards you, and it helps you perpetuate and achieve whatever it is you've laid out for yourself. If that's 3 offices in one state, great. If you want to go nationwide, great. But hopefully just this experience gives you some small, it's just some small piece of your success going forward. So I wish you nothing but the best, man, and can't wait to start seeing deck pages roll in.
Yes, sir. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.